Jesus Christ, the founder.
Exactly. If you think about
if he didn't have the first hire, it would be just a crazy guy.
The first 12 hires.
Yeah, exactly. The first 12 hires.
In the next episode, I head over from Hong Kong to Singapore, where I kick off Token 2049 with a Connected Capital event. There, I experience the amazing food culture and hawker stand culture of Singapore. Hey, beautiful sunset, isn't it? In this episode, and the last episode of the Singapore series, we talked to gaming, education, and blockchain entrepreneur Sarah Yang, the CEO of ULedger, and really talk about her entire career and where it all comes together once she finished Divinity School at Yale and understood her role as a business leader serving Christ. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Cheers.
Back to the show.
Cheers.
This is cheers. Actually, my cup is pretty cold. This is the third episode in Singapore. So I think I'm going to release Singapore all at once, like 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And I think I'm going to do it in the next 2 weeks, in fact. So previously I interviewed Dave McClure. We went to a hawker stand. Earlier today was Thomas at a coffee shop. And then now Sarah at a coffee shop.
Coffee shop that was open?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the first coffee shop that I direct Sarah to, one, I forgot it was that one. And two, that wasn't open. So it's just like... But in fact, I know, it's unfortunate, but it's also ironic. I'm meeting up with all the I'm meeting up non-Singaporeans in Singapore. I tried to get a couple Singaporeans, but they didn't respond to me. I was like, anyway, they're probably busy. So but Sarah and I, we were classmates at London Business School. I also am fond to let people know that I'm her ex-boyfriend, but that's actually 100% true. But I've tracked Sarah's career from business school to, I think you did know the masters, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Yeah, a gaming startup in Shanghai. I think you did something in the interim as well, and maybe you went back to school, and then your current startup. So yeah, let's have a chat first. Like, what did you do before business school? Yeah, what did you do before?
Before business school, so I was a software engineer for a big games company called EA. You might have heard of it.
Oh,
yeah, I was at EA. AAA games, console games, way back in the day. So that will kind of date me a little bit.
Yeah. Oh wow.
It was awesome. I mean, I learned so much during that period of time.
Where was the office?
Burnaby in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big studio, so it's responsible for FIFA. And a whole bunch of big franchises.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So,
but you specifically worked at FIFA?
No, actually, I was in a new business unit called Fusion. So when I joined after undergrad, it was like a new business unit.
Okay.
So I was like number 20 in terms of like number of employees.
Right.
And it was a very entrepreneurial type environment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So they were setting that up. We worked on PlayStation portable games and then Nintendo Wii.
All right.
Yeah, so it was really good. I mean, I got exposure to a lot of different areas in gaming.
Right, I did that. Okay.
Like graphics, AI, communications, networking protocols, things like that. So yeah, it was a really good experience.
Right.
But I ended up leaving because I just wanted to understand, how do people make business decisions?
Got it. Okay.
And
how long were you at EA in total?
I was there for about 5.5 years.
Got it.
Yeah. So then I ended up going to London.
Okay. So it was right after. Okay.
Right after that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think at that time, 2008, 2009, there was a different crisis back then.
Sure. Right.
That had nothing to do with my decision to, go to business school. It was just where I was at in my career.
Got it. Okay. And then so after that, and then you did a lot of entrepreneurial stuff, right? I think you did a lot of the club stuff. So you led treks over. I think it was also called a media.
Yeah,
right?
Because I was involved with the tech club mostly, but also with the media club.
Right.
And so for the tech club, helped to lead some trips. So one to Silicon Valley.
Right.
Yeah. So it was during that time in business school that I was trying to answer certain questions for myself.
Okay.
One of them was just like, how do you foster creativity?
Right.
What does that look like?
Right.
And another was just like, should I start my own thing?
Right. Okay.
Do I have what it takes?
Sure.
So a lot of my activities were geared towards that.
Right.
but I wasn't serious until the last year when we all had to make a decision, right?
Right. And that's when you did your gaming start
Yeah,
in Shanghai.
that's when I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna move to China and I start a company.
Yeah, but why China? I mean, all your network and all your contacts were in the West, in Vancouver.
Yeah,
Right.
so a lot of it had to do with just going back to my roots.
Okay.
I'd never been to China,
Right.
so I felt like I wanted to reconnect, and part of it's driven by, being inspired by my grandmother.
Okay.
She was not educated and she made a lot herself, so I was really inspired by that. So I was hoping to go to China, help people like her,
Okay.
in, from rural areas, help inspire them. And I happened to do it through gaming because that was my background.
Right. Okay. And then you were Shanghai for how many years?
About 7 years.
About 7 years.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
It's a long
I
time.
think every year I ask myself, like, should I leave?
Oh,
I
really?
don't want to say. It was really hard. I mean, it wasn't.
Did you raise funding for it?
It was friends and family.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I think because I had moved there, I didn't really have a strong network to begin
Sure,
with.
yeah.
I just had the business school community, and so I didn't have family and stuff. So we're behind a firewall.
Right.
Can't really
Yeah.
communicate with the rest of the world without VPN. And so so it was the startup thing. There was like just being in China and the being like Asian face, right? And not being fluent to the language,
Right.
those kinds of things. So yeah, I had a lot of doubts actually when I was there.
Do you looking back? I mean, do you regret? It sounds like there was a tinge of regret.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it was part of the process.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it was really good because it taught me to be persistent and just push things to the very end. And I mean, when I stopped doing my startup, I was like, I think I'd given it my all. I was completely drained. May not necessarily have been healthy at the time, but I know I gave it my all.
Right.
And so I have no regrets because I learned so much through that whole process.
Ultimately, they were kids games, right?
Yeah.
From what I remember.
It was never. Yeah, I think probably that was part of the problem because we had like cutesy characters and everything, but not really meant for like little kids, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it was okay. You know what? We managed to.
Don't tell me it's like porn. Pornographic games. The
Going back
cute
to the
little,
conversation.
OnlyFans.
No.
Sarah wants to start an OnlyFans channel. That's what I want to. She would be my first guest.
The dream.
The dream. The dream. So fine line between YouTube and OnlyFans. Let me tell you that. Fine line. Fine line.
Yeah, it's entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's just a piece of clothing between,
Yeah, I've completely forgotten what the question.
Oh yeah, sorry. Gaming. Cute characters.
Yeah, so it wasn't meant for little kids. It was we were trying to go for like high school students,
Okay.
young adults,
Right.
and just inspire them through the experiences we were creating.
Right.
And so it actually did reach an audience.
Okay.
We had some rabid fans, and it took us by surprise. So, yeah,
How many downloads?
we had 500,000.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was decent.
Right.
Not enough, I think, to survive as a business, but it was decent.
Because in gaming, like how many downloads you need to make it like proper?
I would say you probably need at least 1 million plus
Got
if
it.
you can make the conversion rates work, right? Because it was an in-app purchasing model.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So a lot of it is just really investing cash to. I don't know gaming as much as you do, but just if I put myself in your shoes, a lot of it is using money to buy users, right, and buy traffic and then convert.
You could, but everything that we did was organic.
All right.
So we actually didn't pay for the downloads. It just happened. We made use of like marketplace features, for example, trying to get attention in that sense.
Okay. Is it? But that's not as quick or efficient, right? Like if you do it that way.
I think it's a question of whether you can sustain the traction that you get initially.
Got
right?
it.
So this is the initial bump,
Right.
and then there's everything after that, the long tail, right?
Right.
So to be able to do that, the long tail aspect, I think it's really making sure the product is good, having very good like biomechanics,
Oh,
retention
got it.
things.
Got it.
So we made good products and experiences, but I think it was not enough for us to sustain momentum and continue to build up.
So what would most people do afterwards? Would they then move on to the next game? Is that what most gaming studios would do?
Yeah, you make really short, like use short development cycles on mobile especially,
Got it.
and try to launch different products and also capitalize on like latest crazes.
Got it. Okay.
Right? And that's what happens a lot in the industry. So you see a lot of copycats.
Okay. And then how quickly are the development cycles? Like, I got to get a game out. A boutique niche studio will get a game out, once every month?
It depends. It depends on the complexity of the game and
Right.
you know what you're going for in terms of experience, so the graphics and all that.
Right.
Do you remember the game Flappy Bird?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's
A lone guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, right.
And, yeah.
So it can be like wildly
Sure.
successful and not have
Right.
all
Or Rovio and do like 99 and then,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's, I always thought that the model was just shots at goal,
Yeah.
right? So if you just put lots of shots, like you're bound to hit at some point.
Yeah.
But then it's knowing when to like turn it off. That's kind of why I asked. It's like, is there a time frame?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's really easy to think about in retrospect,
Got
but
it.
in the moment when
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out like what are we trying to build, who are we going after, you have to make a call about what that looks like, right? And because we're developing educational games, we had to really learn like what kind of questions to ask. So from a design perspective, if we really want people to learn, then you have to understand like how the gaming mechanics play with actual retention of that knowledge and things like that.
Oh, I see. So it's a
Yeah.
different aspect rather than right.
Yeah, so we could have taken the approach where we're just pumping out games and things like that, but
Right.
that wasn't what we wanted to do
Got it.
ultimately.
Right.
I don't know if I would have done it differently. I mean, maybe I could have tried to make a quick buck just
Right.
to sustain ourselves.
Right.
But personally, I had like a thesis, an idea in mind in terms of how to change the world, so to speak. And so I wanted to answer that question as quickly as possible. So that's why we tried to focus as much as possible on that,
Right.
and push that to the end.
Right. And so in your particular model, then it would be like trying to keep build a game, do the long tail, make sure the current users are engaged, and perhaps even take those characters and franchise out to do like Baby Shark stuff, right?
Yeah.
Would that kind of be the model?
Yeah, it would have been.
Okay, that's the
I
model.
admired like Disney and Pixar in terms of how they brand things.
Got it.
And so I think the characters we had that potential.
Got it. Okay. So they spent a lot of time on the characters, even before the gameplay.
We didn't. I mean, we had one like primary mascot, I guess you could say,
Right.
as part of our logo, and I think we would have just like developed a storyline around that.
Got it.
We didn't spend too much time on that. I think a lot of it was just learning like game design and
Sure.
things like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
But in retrospect, that's how you can develop strong characters, right? Strong storyline, really understanding who that character is.
yeah,
Okay, got it.
give them all the backstories. I was gonna make a comment, but maybe it's pretty famous.
This is R-rated. This is like not for kids. It's very clear.
Well, you do
yeah.
have like one follower from YouTube Kids.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's
You
true.
have to be
That's true.
careful.
That's true. Sorry.
Never know.
You never know. No, but it's okay. That backstory. No, because I think about backstory and characters because I had a chat with someone on YouTube, and she about YouTube yesterday, and she's like, "I'm a big consumer of YouTube, and there's particularly this guy in podcast, and there's this person that keeps on coming back, and it's almost as if it's like a recurrent character." And she was describing it almost as a comfort, and I was thinking about, I didn't think about my show as a show, and then I didn't think of it as characters until she mentioned it, and I was like, oh, that's true. Like viewers want to see how I change, and they probably want to see other characters so how they change. So I need to kind of talk about that. I need to talk about the story. And the second part was like this whole trip, I saw myself YouTube on the big screen. I mean, I could easily do it, right? Just put YouTube on the TV, but I did, and I don't know. It felt weird to do it in a hotel,
Yeah.
and then I was like, wow, it's a show. Like people can. So anyway, it hit me differently. It's a responsibility. But I guess on the character bit, right? So having good story, having a great backstory,
Yeah.
and then I guess the involvement of all the characters, how they play.
Yeah.
To play.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially if you want to create some kind of franchise, right? And a lot of successful games out there,
Right.
you'll see the characters and people automatically kind of resonate with them for some strange reason, right? So, yeah, I think most popular games, they'll have some kind of character, and
Right.
you look at it and say, oh, I recognize that person. I know what they're going for in the game.
Right.
It just brings to mind the experience and the goals created from that experience.
So like I can imagine a Pixar, a movie studio would think about it, right? Star Wars, was it George Lucas's? What do you?
ILM.
What's that agency called?
ILM or-
Lucasfilm,
Oh, okay.
right? Is it something like that? But
You
they
can
really
edit
think
this out.
yeah, they really think about characters. But do a lot of like gaming studios, like I don't know, not maybe Warhammer, but
World of Warcraft.
Warcraft, Starcraft. Do they think about characters in the same way in what you see?
I would imagine so. I mean,
Oh, really? Mortal Kombat, dude. Because sometimes I look at it, I'm like, they do movies after the game, and I don't know the characters that well, but I feel as if the story's a little bit contrived, but I don't know.
yeah, if you're basing the movie off of the gaming world, it's like you have to be in the gaming experience to really understand what's been built up,
Right.
right? And I don't think that necessarily translates to a 2.5 experience
Right.
on screen,
Right.
right? Because you have to get to know this entire incredibly complex world in a very short period of time.
Right.
Just like
Right.
any book, right?
Right.
If you
Right.
think
That's
about
true.
Lord
Right.
of the Rings.
Yeah, that's true. Versus the other way around. If you have movies, you already know and you understand the universe. I was thinking, because a lot of those games are just fighting. So you only know them from what they do, which is they just fight, right? And you expand it into movie, it's kind of like, well, what else do you do? Like,
Yeah.
they've only interacted on a fight before. That's
Yeah.
how everybody understood them.
Yeah.
But to expand in the movie, that's incredibly tough. Versus the other way around, which is if you have a movie and a universe first, then to make it a game, I guess it's slightly simpler. They can fight, or they can actually go into a world, or
Yeah, I mean, you're taking a complex, immersive storyline and trying to tease apart like the most important things that you
Yes.
want your audience to
right,
like experience or to learn, right? And to like journey along with.
right. Versus the other way around. You have first the game, which is a very simple world, and then expand it out.
Yeah, could do it that way.
Yeah, good. But that sounds like harder because then you're relying on the writers of the movie to really expand everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
Because I've seen the Mortal Kombat one. Wasn't there like a Tekken movie?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Street Fighter.
There's
They're all
definitely
flops.
the Blizzard ones. Yeah, I think
Yes. What was it?
Diablo maybe.
Was there a Diablo one?
Might have.
But there was
Angry
the
Birds had a movie.
Angry Birds had the. They had the StarCraft
Reveal.
one,
Yeah.
right? They were all terrible. No, StarCraft or the other one. What's the other one?
World of Warcraft.
World of Warcraft. Yeah.
Sure.
They're all terrible.
I haven't seen.
Oh yeah, no, I watched it. I wanted to give it a go. It was terrible. It was just like the characters were good. I'm sorry, the CGI was good,
Yeah.
but the storyline was like. That's why I said it was a bit contrived. So I don't know because I don't play the game, so I don't know if the storyline was already there.
Yeah.
But it felt like just a lot of unnecessary drama.
Mm.
So,
Well, I can see that. I mean,
Right.
if you're watching something for 2-3 hours, there needs to be drama of some sort.
yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Versus, I guess, yeah, the Star Wars, the Star Trek, it was, yeah, the storyline is a lot richer, but they've had a lot of time to percolate. Okay, so after the gaming stuff, after Shanghai, what did you do?
Oh, you went from after.
I know, sorry.
I'm like, wow, jumping
Yeah.
around. So after my startup, I helped a friend with his startup.
Okay.
We're still going, by the way. It's very niche market, but they do really meaningful work.
Okay.
It's like a service learning type business where we took high school students to, at least when I was helping out, we
Okay.
took like high school students to rural areas in China, Southeast Asia, so like
Okay.
Cambodia, Thailand,
Okay.
and we worked on approximately 2-week social impact projects with local social enterprises.
What's the name of the startup?
Keru, Keru.
Okay.
Yeah,
And how long were you there?
I was there for well, officially about a year, but I was helping out for about a couple years.
Okay. Got it.
Very early.
Oh, wow.
Very early
Okay.
on.
Right.
It was challenging in a very different sense because I went from going like all digital software, that kind of environment
Okay.
to spending like 24/7 with these like students on trips,
Right.
which takes a very different skill set and thinking, right? Because you're
Okay.
taking care of people,
Sure.
and there's a lot of risks in that sense, right?
You were saying high school? High school.
High school students, yeah,
Okay. Got it.
like senior high school students.
Got it. Okay.
So, but it was a really good time, I guess. So I got to really work with people on the ground in villages and see the world from a very different perspective.
Okay. And what did that experience inform you? Like, do you like the gaming side, the digital side? Do you like the hands-on side, the in real life stuff?
That's a really good question. I think it's an interesting one because when I was doing my startup, my whole goal was to reach people that didn't have as many opportunities as, say, I've been given. But I think I felt a disconnect between that vision and actually seeing the impact. For my friend's startup, I got to see that firsthand.
Right, of course.
Right?
Right.
Interact. So
The feedback loop is faster. Well, not faster, but more impactful. You see the impact.
it's more impactful, but it's also like in terms of your allocation of time, like I like to work on things at the strategic level, the aggregate, but when you're amongst people that you need to spend your time differently in
Sure.
terms of building relationships and
Right.
really focusing on the people in front of you.
Sure, of course.
And so that brought to mind a lot of questions about how do I balance those two things of being able to see the real impact on people versus being able to do what I'm best at, which is a little bit more on the strategic side. So that's something I'm still kind of wrestling with, and I think that's why it's really important to, at least for me, to be able to go out and actually talk to customers or whoever's using
Got it.
products or services that I'm a part of.
I see.
Yeah.
So are you, if I may summarize, so it sounds like at the startup, you were on the strategic level and you felt to some degree out of touch with your customers.
For my own startup, yes. I mean, I wasn't as much involved with the day-to-day, although I was pretty hands-on for some things.
Sure, right.
But in terms of actually interacting with those that were using
Got it.
our games,
Got it.
I mean, partly a bit of a language barrier as well.
Sure.
But I guess I could have been a little bit more intentional on that side.
Sure, fair enough. Versus on your friend's startup, you directly engage with the customers. Right.
Yeah. It felt very different.
Right. Got it.
And I loved that part, but I knew that I didn't want to spend all of my time doing that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But can I lean into that a little bit? So I think what you're saying is that like you, as much as a product person that you are, you also really need to get that direct feedback from the customers to see whether they love your product, don't love your product, right? And without that feedback, for you, I guess it's maybe you're not. Yeah, it doesn't complete you. I don't know what the right phrasing is, but you need that.
I was just thinking what we just said.
I know. Yeah.
Like, complete. Or
Yeah.
full.
Yeah. Jerry Maguire does it. Yeah. Again, dating ourselves. But yeah, like, you need that to, because you can run, a company on from a spreadsheet, right? And I guess one thing I'm going to link it to is like, as you get into later stage startup, you have other people doing it for you.
Yeah.
Right? You're not directly engaging with customers. But what this kind of reveals is you like that direct impact and direct feedback, and you want to have conversation with the customers.
Yeah, and I think about it not necessarily from the product perspective, although that's important, right?
Right.
And actually, you're bringing up something that I've been thinking about recently, because I the older I get, I feel like the more what am I trying to say? The more it dawns on me that the people that are using our products, or our customers and things like that, their pains, their journeys,
Right.
they just feel more real and relatable. So I think it's all about how do we find a way to ensure that our customers and whoever else is involved in the ecosystem is not just a number.
Right.
That we can find those touch points to really fully understand, like, hey, here's what the pain is,
Right.
and not just on a superficial level,
Yeah.
right? Like, hey, here's the product, and this is the solution.
Yeah.
But it's understanding the psyche,
Yeah.
the emotional journey as well, because those things are really important.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and so
Yeah.
I think the more I step into that world, the more, you know, all these things about like segmenting different markets and different customer personas, things like that, they make so much more sense, right? Because I can actually see a face in front of me,
Right.
a real person to talk to.
Right.
So it's really having better alignment in that sense, in terms of the purpose of what we do,
Right.
and actually being able to understand, like, hey, this is how, when we're successful in reaching that.
Yeah. No, I resonate that a lot. You know, well, two ways. One is the YouTube show, right? So I'm working with my advisor Richard, and he was the one saying, hey, you have to have your user persona and customer persona who's watching your show. And obviously, I'm only fan, YouTube kids. It's quite diverse at this moment.
Pretty diverse.
But I've got the analytics, and I can see some part of it. It's like when they engage and when they not engage and where they come from. But it definitely helps. That's why yesterday's conversations was fantastic, right? I talked to Rena, I believe, who signed up with their YouTube Kids account, right? But we were able to talk. I was able to talk to them and get an understanding of what they perhaps want to hear, and with the event of Connected Capital as well, like I couldn't make the Bali event, but the Bali event was fantastic. But again, like just interacting with the customer, so we see a lot of data on like the email, the open rate, and the click-through rate, and I think I've got a hypothesis of what people want, but there's no, I wouldn't say I went in there saying I'm going to talk to a customer and like really just drill them on what they want, but it's the vibe. I want to get a vibe of how they are. And just the vibe alone, I'm just kind of brainstorming here. Just a vibe alone, I think is worth it.
Yeah.
Just who are they? Like, who are they? What do they look like? What do they want?
Yeah.
Again, as a vibe, it's not like I'm. What do you like? You know.
Yeah,
Where do you want to
yeah.
go next? You know.
Check,
Yeah.
check.
Right. It wasn't that. It was just like, oh, okay. Let's talk a bit. And so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely in line with this realm of like thinking about the people we're serving, right? And creating content for. And it's like engaging in very meaningful ways.
Right.
And I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
I was going to say something profound.
OnlyFans. OnlyFans. There you go. Switch it over. Yeah.
But, it's like, it's really meaningful engagement. It's not just about extracting value.
Right.
You actually are making sure that you're providing value.
Right.
And being very genuine about it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't think about this because you mentioned content, right? I didn't, and the two examples I just gave was content, and I think the reason why with content I felt it was even more acute is because I guess I'm selling you something, but at the end of the day, I'm asking for a like or subscribe, and you're not giving me money, so I'm not asking you for money. I'm asking you for your appreciation, and I have to give value. Because otherwise, why would you like or subscribe, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, if you pay, I guess that would be the same. I guess it's a little bit harder with money, or maybe it's a very different type of relationship. With content, it's like it has to be something either educational, entertaining, or both, right? Type of thing. Maybe it is slightly harder, in fact. But okay, so switching gears. After Trend Startup, Shanghai, where did you go next?
No, but, I should know like my own timeline.
Are you?
I'm so engaged in what you're saying. And I was like, oh my gosh, back to me.
Back to you. Back to you.
So, yeah, so I was helping my friend start up.
Right.
Went back to school again.
Yes. Okay. And what did you get a master's in?
It was, well, it's
Theology.
Divinity. It's kind of like
Divinity.
yeah,
Yes.
it's like
That's
theology.
right. You saw God.
Christian history. Yeah, I was out in the villages and I saw God at this moment. But yeah, no, yeah,
Where did you go?
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Yale Divinity School, so I was
Oh, wow.
part of Yale University, and so I was in Connecticut for a few years.
Was it 1 year or 2 years?
3 years.
Really?
It's funny because when we did the MBA together,
Right.
I thought that was the last time. Like I wasn't intending to go back to school, but
Right.
anyways, went back, longer program. So now I don't. Anyways, yeah, it was.
Yeah, but what compelled you to go
To do that?
Yeah, to do one divinity. Yeah. Why? And go back to school.
I just need another degree. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Divinity, so useful in life.
I have a degree in Canada and the UK, not US.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
No, it was because, helping my friend with his startup, going back to that experience,
Okay.
I had a lot of questions, right? So I was in these villages, I'm seeing a lot of remnants of, let's say, big NGO projects and stuff in these villages,
Okay.
but, not a lot of long-term impact. Right, and actually,
Okay.
some of them felt like they could be detrimental because there
got
was
it.
no maintenance.
Sure. Yeah.
So
See that?
that brought to mind a lot of questions for me in terms of how the world works. How countries, how does development aid work, and how do we actually step alongside people?
But that's still just nonprofit type of stuff.
Could be nonprofit. It just brought to mind a lot of big questions about the way the world's structured, right? How it developed and why, when we have countries or places with a lot of resources, how do we bring those over to other places, but in ways that help maintain the dignity of the people that we're working with?
But how does that translate into divinity?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a Christian, so yeah.
Oh,
so,
really? I didn't.
So it's faith is really important to me,
Got it.
and as a starting point, I need to understand from a faith perspective, how should I see the world in my role within it? And going to a place like YDS is very different from my own, I guess, religious background and what I've grown up with.
Right.
But it was an academic environment, and it would actually allow me to understand the world from a lot of different perspectives.
Oh, okay. So it's not. So I don't know anyone that's been to Divinity School. So it's not specific faith based. It's rather
It still is, but I would say, even within Christianity, there's a whole spectrum,
Sure.
right, in terms of
right.
theologies and
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah, right.
And so, with the classes I took, it just gave me a lot of different frameworks to be able to view the organization
Okay.
in the business world, and to understand. So, for example, and this is the way I was thinking about it. As we're building companies, we create value systems within it. It's almost like a company is like it's a tribe of people, right? So you've got people leading it, and you're all buying into a set of beliefs and values. And so, from a faith perspective, because I think we all have something, whether it's Buddhism, Christianity, whatever it is, right? We have a certain set of beliefs. So if we're bringing those things together, what does that look like in a company?
Got it. Okay. Right.
And I think
Could be like mission-driven, purpose-driven companies.
yeah, kind of. But I've always worked with a lot of people from different faith backgrounds, and I know in business school we think about things from ethics and everything like that. But this was a deeper dive into our fundamental beliefs and how we see the world. And so it's important because if you have a faith system, whatever it happens to be, and you're trying to be consistent with that set of beliefs, in this environment where all these different people like could have conflicting beliefs with you, then what does that mean in terms of those interactions and the implications for myself as a person?
So did you go into Divinity School thinking that you were going to look at organizations through this lens, or was it you want to go for a faith-based understanding?
Maybe
all
above,
above.
yeah.
All above. Okay.
I would say that I was very focused, kind of like in business school, right? I had some certain questions. So I entered thinking, okay, what is my role? You know, how does business, government, society work? You know, how do they develop? And I read some really amazing books that helped me with that.
Right.
And then how do I look at this if I'm building a company?
Right. Right.
How would I structure those values?
Right.
Because I think in recent years you see a lot of, I think there's a phrase like stakeholder capitalism and those kinds of things, right?
Totally.
And how that affects business decisions, and there's a lot of controversy as well around that.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do with what we believe in, right? What's right, what's wrong.
Was that something that were there courses in like, organizational behavior around faith-based? Were there specific courses or?
Not necessarily. I had to piece together different courses that would help me to understand different aspects.
Got it. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Because most of the courses dealt with an individual's, again, I don't know Divinity School classes, but I would assume it dealt with the self, right? And understanding faith. Is that how a lot of those courses work?
It's trying to give a quick overview. So there's some fundamental courses just to give frameworks and how to, be able to articulate how you see things and where it lands.
Right.
And so in terms of the content, the curriculum, it's just very structured around like the source of materials that we looked at, how we're asking questions. So there's certain methodologies.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then straight up history and understanding.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. There's the history of Christianity, the history of Judaism.
different like time periods.
Okay, got it. Cool.
And it's fascinating because you're
Christianity has just Christianity alone has gone through different historical periods.
I mean,
it's a startup to some degree. Jesus Christ, the founder.
Exactly. If you think about
if he didn't have the first hire, it would be just a crazy guy.
The first 12 hires.
Yeah, exactly. The first 12 hires. Yeah, exactly. For stabbing him in the back, but yeah, like otherwise, if he didn't have those followers, his other co-founders, the PayPal mafia, the Jesus Christ mafia, he's some crazy guy, I can make water. What was it? Turn water to bread, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Wine. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Water to wine. I can walk on water.
It's very fascinating because I know there's a lot of controversy in certain aspects for sure. I mean that's widely acknowledged, but there's a lot of really interesting insights that we can gain from how it's developed and how
oh, cool.
how they deal with conflicts and
I know I've read a lot of that stuff.
So like how you deal with conflicts, how do you sustain a movement, if you will, right?
Oh, you also look at it in those lenses as well, like conflict management.
I looked at it from a lot of different angles.
Okay.
Right?
It wasn't just through the course material, it was just yourself asking this question.
I think for the course materials and the way they structure the classes and everything, I mean, that was definitely a part of it.
Got it. Okay.
But I tend to think about these things anyways because I'm trying to understand how do I relate that back to the things that matter in terms of my work.
Sure, of course. Right.
Daily life.
Right.
So I got to take courses there as well as across campus. So
really?
Supplemented with courses at the School of Management and a law school course. So that was really helpful.
Got it.
Yeah. So it just helped me to piece together like a more holistic understanding of the world that we have today.
And then what do most people, when they graduate from the Divinity School, what Did they become ministers? Did they
Yeah, so
start Scientology? The next great.
next great cult.
Yeah, right. That's a great business, by the way.
Yeah.
What's his name in Texas? Jimmy? Is it Jim Olsen
Uh,
or something? Anyway, they have these massive churches in Texas.
they do. Well, I mean, a lot of mega.
I think it's a big
different
business.
Yeah, so actually, there's a lot of people that go to Divinity School that they want to go into academia.
Oh, I see.
So go straight into like a PhD afterwards.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Um,
Okay, got it.
And then there's others that actually will become ministers.
Okay, got it.
So in different denominations, different churches,
Got it.
kinds of churches.
Right.
And then there's a small subgroup that kind of people like me that
Yeah.
came from industry and want to go back into it.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
So entrepreneurs, and it's just a mixed bag.
Okay.
In that sense.
I actually have a book on OB, right, organizational behavior around faith-based organization. I forgot what the title is. It's a white book, and it was just like, maybe organizational behavior from the principles of religious or faith-based. I'll give you the name.
Okay.
And because I've always, I wouldn't say always been fascinated, but I do fundamentally believe that like the way they construct, or at least from the outside, the way they construct the organizations are different. And so I wanted to understand a little bit about it. And I think that was the only book I could find on like OB on, around faith-based organizations.
Interesting.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, definitely would love to read
Yeah, I'll let you know. Did you guys talk about exorcisms? No.
No, not in that environment.
Oh, really? No. So I'm not Christian, but as I get older, so again, I'm not religious, but I definitely think there's a certain serendipity and a certain, I guess I've been more, I wouldn't say faith-based, but I've been more spiritual as I get older. Well, it could be an age, where I'm more accepting of a path, and maybe whoever knows, where that path leads, and not to try to, so not to try to go towards a path, but really try to be accepting of trying to be accepting and being open to where the path is. There's this really famous like creative guy. I don't know, you must have seen him before. It's like a white guy, big beard.
That
Big
helps.
hair. Yeah, sorry. Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And he's like the producer for like Jay-Z, BC Boys, like 20, 30 years of music. And I think he wrote a book on how to be creative. And he said something like, to be creative, you actually you can't chase being creative. You have to let it happen.
Yeah.
And so you can hope for it, you can manifest it. And you have to prepare yourself for when that time comes. But you can't chase after it, because if you do, then it'll go away. And I when I saw that, I think he said creativity, but I see that I changed that word with like success as well. I also think like if you chase success, I also think that it'll run away, or you gotta kind of have to let it happen. I don't know. That's, as I get older, that's been my experience.
Okay, so that movie, it's called Soul, Pixar. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
There's a moment like being in the zone and everything.
Yes, the one, the jazz singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
It reminds me of that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I've been more spiritual, and the history. I'd love to get your recommendation actually on the history of Christianity all throughout the times.
All throughout the time, sir.
Yeah, because I've read a lot of history, so it's like it's. I don't know that aspect. Yeah, I don't know that aspect tremendously well, but like, there's like, obviously when you first started, and then that relationship with Judaism, that relationship with Islam, and then it's also pretty interesting, a lot of it was kind of state political control.
Yeah.
Right, that's how you have the orthodoxy side.
Yeah.
So religion has oftentimes been mixed up with these politics.
Yeah.
So obviously the Church of England as well, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of got split. And then the Lutherans came around. So Yeah, what is true Christianity? I have a thesis as a non-Christian.
You're gonna get different answers from
Yeah.
different people depending on where they land on the spectrum.
What's your answer?
What's my answer? Well, follower of Christ, and so everything just revolves around Jesus, who he was, who he still is. Yeah.
WWJD. Kinda.
Wow.
Wait. Sorry, I'm getting dating myself. What would Jesus
No, I
do?
was like, wow.
Yeah. What would Jesus
Like way
do?
back in.
That was way back in the day.
I haven't heard that for a while.
Oh really? WWJD. Did you have a bracelet?
Did I? I think I did.
You
but
did?
Only for a brief period. Like I was not during the whole craze.
Okay, got it.
But, like
Okay.
afterwards when it was. Yeah.
I kind of fancy the thing. I mean, even though I thought it was a good question. What like it's a good reflection.
Yeah.
What would our better self do? Or
Yeah.
sorry, our better self. What would a better self do? Like, and so you at least you ask the question like, yeah, what would you do? Like,
Yeah.
you know, so you know, if you take another drink, I'm not saying don't do bad things. I mean that happens, but you know, like at that moment, right? Like, oh, should I take a drink? Maybe not. But just asking yourself that question is a moment of self-reflection.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important because, and especially in business, because there's so many gray areas.
Sure.
Right? And I think the more you get exposed to different environments and different ways of doing things,
Right.
the more you start to question, like, you know, the things that you know, and
Right.
whether it's, you know, right or wrong, if you want to
Yes,
say
yeah,
it that way.
yes, yeah.
So I think it's
Is there a right or wrong?
a big question.
You're right, because in business, almost anything goes.
Yeah.
You could justify it
You can
in
frame it
different
a lot of
ways. Yeah,
times,
that's right.
exactly.
Right.
And when you're taking a look at emerging markets or frontier markets, you
Right,
know, and
right.
I think in economics, you talk about certain, what is it? I can't remember what was the phrase for it, but just like just different inefficiencies. And these are the solutions around those
Sure. Yeah,
inefficiencies,
right.
And so, yeah, it just really challenges you to really understand like exactly what's the intention behind all the things that you do, right? So is there a right or wrong? Just back to your question. I think there's definitely for a certain subset of activities that will always be like, just, I'm not going to cross that line ever.
Right.
But I think for each person it might be different depending on their outlook,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's why like that journey at YDS and that whole thing, I really need to understand that for myself,
Got it.
right? And
Got it.
where I fell within the whole realm of possibilities.
Was that slightly driven? Did you make some looking back? Maybe questionable decision wasn't the wrong. This the wrong way to say it. But did you have to make some decisions that you thought compromised your sense of ethics, and you had to kind of recalibrate? Is that one?
No, I don't believe I've ever done that. I've always been on the conservative side, very black. So I was coming from like, you know, very black and white in terms of like here, we're calling it right and wrong. But then I started to go into the gray area and realizing, oh, okay, there's different ways to see things. I don't think that necessarily changed the way I conduct myself, but it did help me to have a little bit more compassion and understanding in terms of where people are coming from. So I think in that, yeah, so in that sense, it's really understanding the deeper motivation, interests, and things like that.
So could rephrasing, could you say you felt you were perhaps too black and white in a gray world, and you were trying to examine?
Yeah, I think you could say it that way. Yeah, I think that's been my journey for the past little while. Since I left Vancouver, from my own bubble to just the world. And so every every city or most cities have been very international. So really understanding how other people think and being able to combine those inputs into my understanding of the world and how to interact within it.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever done anything questionable. It's just more like maybe if I'm presented with some options that I couldn't really pursue, then maybe that helps me to create a third option that's in line with how I see the world, but that also meets the needs of other person.
Right.
Yeah.
I resonate with what you're saying because as I get older, also like I feel to some degree I've been very fixed on. Maybe fixed is the right word on how I see things, and for example, I've been working with more Western principles. When I first moved to Hong Kong 7 years ago to build something, I was trying to build things in the mold that I knew, and not in the mold that is compatible in Asia.
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with it, but on the other hand, I've also reconciled that's the only way I know how. And perhaps if I were younger, I could change slightly more, but I also can't throw what I know and the baby with the bathwater. I can't just go, okay, all right, I'm gonna go fully native. So I kind of have to reconcile a bit of the two, together.
Yeah. It's not easy.
It's not. Well, it's part of the reason why the YouTube thing was it's so because my market is always am I a Western market or or Eastern? I love Asian, but I was I grew up over there. I was born in Hong Kong, but I grew up in the U.S. I was trained in the U.S., trained in the U.K., worked in the U.K. So that is my model.
Yeah.
And as much as I may feel like I need to adapt to Asia, I can't. I can't because of all the stuff that I've learned there.
Yeah.
Right. I can't go fully native, and somehow I have to try to find some reconciliation in my unique way of looking at it. Because if I go fully, let's say mainland, right? I would go fully mainland. I could never do that well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't have the connections. I don't know the people. I don't understand the culture.
Yeah.
Right.
I totally resonate with that, and I think once you've been exposed to a lot of these different things, it's a part of who you are, right? Your set of experiences, educational background, all that kind of stuff, and that makes you That makes you super unique, and I think that's actually a really good thing. So, a lot of times when people say, "Hey, I don't feel like I fit in this city if I move to say Vancouver or something," because I moved back a couple of years ago,
right.
And it's just feels very different.
Right.
And when I talk to people I've known that grew up there, didn't really move anywhere else.
Right.
It's different in terms of how we can connect with each other.
Sure.
Right.
Sure, I can see that. Yeah.
So I think in that sense, there's a lot of power in that, in how you've been shaped, and how you can help people to understand the rest of the world in that sense. Right? So you don't have to go fully native. You can actually just bring the best of each world, or multiple worlds into the mix in whatever you're doing. Right?
So switching back again. So we go deep, we move, we go deep, we move. And so after Divinity School, you went back to Vancouver. Okay.
Yeah, I went back, wanted to reconnect with family. My parents are there. And
yeah. And then that's when you started, or you jumped aboard ULedger.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I was trying to catch up with the tech industry.
Got
So I started with Bitcoin. I'd heard about it,
Right, got it.
Started reading up on the actual technology itself, and got super obsessed because going back to the previous experience.
This is 2000.
This was like a couple of years ago, 2021.
2021.
Yeah,
Got it.
right after school, right? So I think summer 2021. Because I'd been thinking about everything from Asia, right? The rural areas and the villages, thinking about these big problems. Read up on the technology, the at blockchain and philosophies and the models that could enable got me really excited. You know, I just felt like, oh, this is super interesting. It could actually help solve all these big problems that we see in the world, right? And so, yeah, I became super obsessed, followed different projects. Still a little speculation got burned. And, you know, actually I ran into
one does.
As one does. But I also ran into like all these the issues with, I guess, the industry in the sense of this whole mentality that, you know, you do your own research and like, hey, you know, it's your responsibility, which I get to one level, but it's so easy for certain people to just do,
Sure,
because they don't have time,
of course,
they don't have the technical understanding, and you know, it's just having more compassion against for people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I went through the emotional cycles during the first 6 months, I would say, of like looking into this technology, the industry, and during that time was also connecting with people that were, you know, knew a little bit about the industry. So I was trying to find opportunities,
right,
especially for how to use this technology for social impact.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And how was one the Web3 crypto scene in Vancouver? First, how is it? Like, is it big, small? It's probably small.
I think it's
growing. Don't say everything's growing. You know,
it's growing fast.
Yeah, from 2 to 3 people. You know,
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think there's some pretty big. I mean, Dapper Labs is based in Vancouver,
right.
Which is very well known, like Top Shot, something like that. I think there's another big one that got huge round of funding, Series B last year, called Layer Zero Labs, and
I remember those guys.
Yeah, so there's definitely a bunch of companies there, and there's a presence for other blockchain projects as well if they're remote. So you'd find like, hey, here's a CTO for this famous protocol and things like that.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I think because Vancouver is, you know, it's a hub for tech talent as well.
Sure. Right.
And there's a lot of different capabilities in the local population. So yeah,
Facebook still has an office there, right?
I believe so. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. I just heard that. I remember someone was saying there's a like bunch of the guys that they couldn't get visas to the U.S.
Go to Canada.
They go to Canada. Right?
It's easier.
It's easier for temporary like holding stuff before they.
Anyone and everyone. That's why I'm.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and then having been now in the crypto space for a couple of years now, like what are your thoughts and conclusions?
I feel like still the same big questions in terms of, well, maybe it's different for different regions, because I think in Asia it's starting to become a little bit clearer in terms of how to use it in daily life.
Oh, right.
And I think there's a lot of movement and things happening here, which is why it's so exciting to be
interesting
out in Singapore.
Okay, but it's not clear in the West. The US?
Well, I think I would put it this way. So going back to economics, right, the macro level, you think about technology transfer, if you think about infrastructure development. So in places where infrastructure is not as well developed, then it might be a little bit easier to adopt new things versus other places where it's you've got legacy systems, regulation, all that kind of stuff, right? Which makes it more complicated.
Right.
And so, I mean, for example, if you look at smartphones and how they're being used in Asia versus like North America, it's night and day, right? So I think it's similar to that in ways in terms of adoption.
Got it.
So, so in terms of like challenges, I mean, the question I always come back to is how does this industry sustain itself, right? In terms of actual business, like a business model, because if we look at pure cryptocurrency projects, and it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of speculation and things like that, and there's a lot of risk involved. And when I'm looking at it from a business perspective, I don't know if I'd take that risk. Need something a bit more predictable. So yeah, how do we get there?
Mm.
Is one of the big questions. I think another is in terms of, I think I see a lot of movements and improvements, but it's in terms of the actual interface with the technology itself. I think there's a lot out there that's super technical still, not easy to get behind, right? Because if we're talking about mass adoption, it can't just be for those that have the time to look into technical aspects,
That's right.
I'm a pretty technical person, but at the same time, I don't have a huge amounts of time to look into every single detail for a transaction.
Right.
So it's just really being practical about how people are actually going to use it, right? And what's going to make sense in that. So I think those are the two big questions on my mind. I think there's going to be a lot of innovation. There's a lot of space for a lot of different players for sure. So it's been great to see a lot of willingness to collaborate, work together.
Right. Okay.
Which is one of the amazing things about this industry, I think.
Right. Okay.
For those that actually believe in the tech and the philosophies behind it, things like that.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, wouldn't you say the early days of tech was kind of like that too? Like people were happy to collaborate on hackathons and.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't like that before.
Okay,
I'm just saying, like, since I've only been in it for like a couple of years, maybe less, a little bit less than that, then that's what I've experienced so far.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm actually quite skeptical. But I'm very skeptical on many different things. Skeptical, going in. I've been looking at crypto since 2017. When Bitcoin started, we were in London. I was working in London, and it was there. But I remember I was like, it's a network effect, right? If enough people hold on to it, great, it worked. If there's not enough, and then as it started growing, like I started becoming big into it. I mean, I was the first Techstars, so I led the investment for Techstars' first crypto company. So I've been following for a while, and what's interesting is I think you're 100% right. I think the use case in emerging markets makes a lot of sense. So I saw that in Europe, right? Like if you're in London, nobody did blockchain. I knew the only guy, right? Pamir Glebe, he's the only guy. But everybody did it in Eastern Europe. And I was like trying to figure it out. I was like, why the hell was that? It's because there's no payment infrastructure. They can't get it's very hard for them to raise funding because you're Ukraine or Romania, right? So, you can crowdfund it to some degree, right? Selling ICOs or tokens, whatever it may be. And then the use case in emerging markets like Indonesia, Latin America, Africa. So it definitely to the use case where the existing infrastructure isn't as strong, right? Whether it's payments or technicals, or extra risky stuff like pawn, right? Like where the existing infrastructure doesn't work. All goes back to maybe it's a dirty money.
We don't talk about this all the time.
It's just me. Sorry, it's me. Just me.
Just to be clear.
Just to be clear. Not her. It's me. But yeah, I think I see that use case, and I find, and that's what I'm as much as I am crypto and Web3, I don't believe it's a mass thing because I don't see the use case for the mass, right?
Not yet.
But if your existing infrastructure is shit, yes. Yeah. You've grown up using transfers of Bitcoin, makes sense. If you've grown up, in the UK, it's like, what was it? What that system was? It Swift? No, whatever. That bank to bank is free. It's like, okay, this works. Why do I need to get so 100% believe in use case first, and I just don't see it in the West as much.
Yeah.
As strong.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is, as an example, I remember Google Glass, right?
Yep. Okay.
When there was all the hype around it, and it was a massive failure.
Right.
But at the time, I was in a panel, and I mentioned that, I think the form factor wasn't really great, right? Maybe the technology wasn't there yet, but as technology advances, I think we'll actually discover what that looks like, right? So we have to find the right form factor or like the
Sure. Yeah.
interactions
Yeah.
that make sense
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
us to make use of it.
The Apple Glass is supposed to come out soon, right?
I think didn't they come up with it already?
Yeah, I thought so. But I've seen
I don't think it
pictures
was
of it.
glass. I think it was called something else.
Yeah, that's. Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You connect it. It's yeah, it's kind of like an Oculus, but I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
slimmer.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not as slim as Google Glass. And right, you can interact, I think, with your basically your computing world and your productivity world a little bit
Yeah.
better. Right.
So like, you know, that may or may not be the form in which
Right.
mass adoption will happen,
Right.
right? Maybe, but you know, as research continues and
Yeah.
as they discover like how to solve the big technical challenges,
Right.
we'll actually find that happy place,
Right.
right? So
Yeah. And I actually I don't ever mass adoption. I mean, like, do I see? I was gonna say, is there any technology where mass adoption really happen? I guess to some degree it has, like
Internet.
smartphones, internet. But I guess you gotta get a lot of things right. I mean, the internet happened in what, 1990s? Like mass adoption. AOL.
yeah, there was like
Before
the let's see, the .com bubble early
Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah.
So probably around mid 2000s is when it super.
Took off.
Yeah, because you start to, well, you had like a lot of browsers and stuff,
Right,
better
right,
organization.
Right.
I think Facebook, LinkedIn, like these social media.
That's true. Yeah.
So ways to connect with people that we couldn't
Right.
do before.
Right. But it still took a good, because obviously the internet was around in the early days and with Facebook's early integration, Facebook. But I felt like once everybody started using, let's say, for example, like Facebook, and then everyone's like, oh, we need the internet. I felt.
Yeah.
I mean, because in Asia, people are like, oh, yeah, you know, you use the example, like in cafes, it's like, yeah, we don't have Wi-Fi. Why do you need Wi-Fi? Like, you know, you don't need to connect, right? Like all the time. But it has become, and I think Facebook was one of the clear needs because people like want to post or like status update. Before that, you don't need to use it on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't a daily.
You didn't know
use
that you
case.
needed it,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so,
And the email you would, but that's not mass, right? It's for college kids work.
yeah. So like, once it gets to a point where it's super useful,
Right.
it changes your behavior,
Right.
right? Then
Right,
you
right.
realize, oh, how can I live my life without it?
That's right. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
my smartphone.
That's right.
I remember when I first started using smartphones. I'm not gonna say which model, but it really changed my behavior. And you know, when I was meeting with people,
Okay.
right?
Right.
In terms of like my habits and checking my phone, all that
Right.
kind of stuff. So I think it's gonna be a matter of time when we think about Web3.
Sure.
And I don't think it's just gonna be blockchain. It's blockchain plus all the other things that are happening.
Of course, 100%.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I don't like the word, even Web3. You know, I think, yeah, we'll see. You know, we'll see evolution.
Yeah.
And where the name is, yeah, it'll be some evolution of how we consume stuff.
Yep.
Switching back to you now. So if I could summarize everything, and we had a chat before about like how would I think about your career and think about like what's everything, and you're kind of saying like I'm very good at early stage stuff, maybe like 0, -1 to 1 type of thing.
A good one.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I was with Thomas, right, and
Yeah.
he was like, I was about to do 0 to 1. He was like, no, there's something like -1 to 1. I was like, negative, like.
Flat on the floor.
Yeah, like beyond 0. I mean, it's called an imaginary number for a reason, right? Like it doesn't really exist.
Oh yeah, he's an engineer by background, so okay.
But it's an imaginary number. There is no such thing as an. I think it isn't. Isn't it an imaginary number? Maybe
Yeah.
it's not. Is it?
I
Or I is an imaginary. But anyway, whatever. I forgot about the whole divinity thing, and if I look at your career and think about what you've done, and the fact you took 3 years out and say, this divinity thing, maybe you've thought about it from a personal perspective, but it sounds like it's, trying to structure things, or at least maybe the lens that you look through is trying to construct people, organizations, teams around some sort of like maybe mission based, but like, some sort of purpose, right? That's slightly beyond the company. And then I think our conversation about the customers, right? And really always being very vitally focused on, the people that you're serving.
Yeah.
Right? The congregation. The flock.
The flock.
The flock.
That's the flock.
Yeah, that's your flock, right? And every company needs to find their own flock.
Yeah.
Right? And and have a come to Jesus moment, but have to find the flock and be really integrate, like really understand the flock, right? And the motivations. So because I don't know that many people that do tech, but have also do like Divinity School, right? And think about things from a faith-based way.
Definitely not many of us.
Yeah.
But throughout my career, I think, or everything I've done, I've always stuck out in that sense. Like whether it was as a female lead, because there weren't that many.
Sure.
Or any context I've been in.
Sure. Right.
So I think, so the experience at Divinity School has definitely helped to enhance my ability to recognize different situations and articulate, but also acknowledge, all the other factors at play, right? So when I look at an organization, it's certain things just become super clear to me because I have all these different frameworks to draw from, whether it's from my technical training to business school to div school. It's just a lot of different ways of seeing things.
Sure, right.
And so I think that's helped me to respond to different situations because for example, ULedger is a fully remote workforce, right? And I'm in a situation where about 30 people, I think when I joined, we were starting to like about 10-ish, so about 30 people now, and trying to figure out how to structure this in a remote work environment, which for a lot of people is still pretty new, right? I mean, I know remote work has been around for some time, but I think with all the innovations coming out, especially with AI and all that kind of stuff, that makes for a lot of really interesting possibilities, but we always still have to think about the people,
of course,
and how to create connection and build that sense of like belonging, alignment with the vision.
Do you spend a lot of time thinking about that?
I do.
Maybe whether it's like it's part of your job description or just it takes a lot of brain power. You find yourself drawn to thinking.
I naturally think about these things.
Okay, no.
When I'm thinking, I'm dreaming about these things.
Good. Yeah.
I'm so
set it on camera. Yeah. Set it on camera.
No, it's actually I have a lot of fun with these things because it's just it's a different way to do things, right? And like I think we're living in a moment where we can do a lot of things differently.
Yeah.
Right? And really take advantage of all the things, or really learn from the past, whether it's mistakes about like how to treat people and whatnot, and combine that with all of the crazy cool tech advancements that are coming out.
Right.
So merge those things together and create a really special environment for people to work in. Right? That meets the needs of today.
Right. The reason why I was leaning into, not to go, but the reason I was leaning into that whole like dream and sleep about it was someone said to me, like, you should be doing something that you find fun, and other people it was like don't find fun or it's not enjoyable. And as trivial as fun is, so in my past I was like, fun is like underrated, right? Do something that's hard. Then I started realizing like, fun is like, yeah, life's too short not to work on something fun. And so inevitably, I found myself really enjoying the content piece, right? And so if you really, really enjoy, just think about that alignment of people, and not just, high level alignment of people. Yeah, maybe your team member, Tony, and really think about how could I take Tony and optimize Tony's skills or experience or his anxieties and turn it into an advantage, right? Like, and so that it draws out his good things, masses weak things, and we all have weaknesses, so that's fine. And so there's harmony in the team.
Yeah.
And that's your enjoyment. I think that's very revealing, in fact.
Yeah.
And then to coalesce around a mission, right? A purpose, right?
Yeah.
Where you work with,
Yeah, it's funny because when you say fun, I think the way I approach things is, but not so much about seeking fun per se. I know you're not saying that either, but I kind of gravitate towards.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe it's a different way of phrasing it. It's like the things that I do know that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's helping people to realize their potential. It's innovating, creating new things, doing things differently. Not for the sake of being different, but just having fun with that.
Right.
Like playing with ideas.
Yeah. When you say that, you make me think of like, I don't know how much football, like soccer, you watch.
Like almost zero.
Do you watch any sports? Like hockey? Do you even watch hockey? No.
In recent years, no. I mean, my team is.
No, I thought the Canucks were doing well. Didn't they win like 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
I don't think so. It's been a while.
No, they won, and then it was like a riot.
No,
was that a while?
I think they lost they haven't won the Stanley Cup forever. So.
Oh, maybe they lost the Stanley Cup, and then there was a riot. Okay, got it. I remember there was a riot. There was like, what happened there? I asked my dad about it. So football managers, the top ones. So there's a lot of like mediocre ones. So the mediocre ones.
Oh, thank you. That's
good. No, you're not a mediocre one. They're like, oh, we want to play a formation. We want to play a philosophy. 4-4-2, 4-3-3, whatever, right? 4-5-1.
Okay.
And then say, that's how we do it. We'll slot the people and we make this people fit the system. The good ones look at the individuals and say, how do we figure out a system to maximize the strengths of each? And it could be a 4-3-3 when we're attacking and a 4-4-2 when we're not, that type of thing. But it takes into account each and every individual's strengths and weaknesses. And you remind me, like, in the way you think about it, is like that. It's like, I've got these philosophies and I got these frameworks, but then I'm really also enjoying and understanding the actual person, right? To Tony in that example.
Yeah.
And making sure so there's alignment between that person and the system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's so much power and potential in that, because if you line all those things up and you're not so much fitting people into a framework, but choosing the right framework for what you have in place, then it just makes things so much. I mean, you're still going to have issues and things and challenges, but I think you can see in the people in the team, in how they work and how committed they are to actually realizing that shared vision, right?
Right.
And it's a lot of fun when you start to see growth happen. And
is there something? Yeah. What does it mean when you see growth happen? Is it a metric type of thing? Is it the people? Is it?
It can be a lot of different things. I mean. I can't say there's one thing or another that I look for, but I would say that when I have those moments of like, hey, this is awesome, it's when the team also makes certain realizations, right? Because you can only help tell or share insights from your experience to a certain extent.
Right.
At some point, people have to learn, right? Make mistakes and figure things out.
Right.
Put their own spin on whatever it is they're working on. So when you start to get there and have, these insights that are pretty profound, and it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. So I think that's, for me, one of the most joyous things about it. Working with the team and creating these things.
Right.
And hopefully the numbers also follow in terms of like other.
Yeah, but that's a lagging indicator.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
That.
Exactly. But I firmly believe that if the people are taken care of, right, then all those things will happen.
Right.
So I've never really ever, whatever I've done, never really been concerned about the results per se. It's more about the team and just making sure that is good.
Yeah. I know I've taken actually a long time, but it's actually 1:15.
Okay.
I don't know what time do we start. 10:30?
I'm pretty flexible. So,
Okay.
No, we started 11:30 actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
It's about almost 2 hours.
Remember, it took me half an hour to get here.
That's true. Wait, was it 11? Oh yeah, we were supposed to meet at 11. Yes, we were supposed to meet at 11. Any last thoughts? Or
Last thoughts. Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I think.
yeah, it was fantastic. It was fun. I have some thoughts.
No, it's always,
After the camera.
yeah, it's always nice to, have like real, authentic conversations and explore different possibilities, because I think when we're in the day-to-day,
Yeah.
we don't often talk about
Yes.
these things.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yep.
I think these things are important to talk about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think for your diverse viewing audience,
Includes OnlyFans people. And
I don't have a
kids.
toy to open
Yeah.
here. I think what I would say is, if you're struggling to find your place and what it is that you want to do, because I've been through that whole journey of I've tried a lot of different things. I think what I would say is, it's actually a good thing to wrestle these kinds of questions, right? And to be open to different possibilities, because I think early in my career, I had a very fixed idea of what that looked like. Gaming, and that was it.
Got it. Right.
But the more I let myself be open to different ways of, that playing out, and helping my friend with his startup, for example, is something like that just happened. It's not something I was thinking about.
Right.
So the more I enter into those kinds of experiences, the more the world just opened up tenfold. Right. So I think I wouldn't be here in this place at ULedger if it weren't for that. Because being in Web3, blockchain, all that stuff, that was definitely not on my radar, and I just sort of stumbled into it. Right? And I think I've enjoyed the entire process. It hasn't been easy, but I think it's definitely helped me to understand a lot more in terms of who I am and what kind of impact I could potentially make, hopefully have one day. And so, yeah, I would just say, just keep at that.
Cool. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on.
Thanks, Tack. Appreciate it. Have a safe flight later today.
Thank you very much. You too. When do you fly back?
No, I fly back to Vancouver on the 24th, so a couple weeks. Yeah, I'm in the Philippines next week.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Cool. Anyway, bye. Ciao, ciao. See ya.
Bye.
Hey, I hope you liked that episode. And if you like an episode like that, you might want to check out this episode with Haroon Khan. They're both graduates from London Business School, and they both went through this journey of finding themselves as business people, and as leaders through a spiritual journey. I think you'll enjoy that episode a lot. So please, if you like what I do, please subscribe, and cheers until next time.